In these mountains, threads hold more than color and pattern. They hold memory. My name is Esther Medina, and I practice the critically endangered folk art of Appalachian heritage white pine weaving, a nearly forgotten folk art passed down through generations since before the Civil War. I learned at the knee of my great-grandmother in the early 1960s. Today, I'm using this weaving to tell a story, one not often found in textbooks, about how the Civil War shaped, scarred, and sometimes silenced the people of Appalachia. Before the war, life in the hills was hard, but it was ours. Most families here were small farmers, raising corn, tending hogs, and leaning on their neighbors and kinfolk. Unlike the plantation South, slavery wasn't widespread in much of Appalachia. Folks lived close to the land and far from power. But when the war came, it didn't ask who owned slaves or who didn't. It just came. In 1863, the Union passed a draft law. If you had $300, you could hire another man to take your place in the war. Enter the substitute brokers, slick men who came into poor communities like ours, offering cash to the hungry and promises to the desperate. For many, it was a choice between starving or fighting a war they never asked for. Some were tricked, others were just plain used. They called it commutation. We called it betrayal. Many young men were lost, fighting a war they didn't ask for. Substitute brokers preyed on the impoverished communities, offering a pittance, selling off the services to the highest bidder. There's an old letter in our family that says, they paid him in greenbacks and took him up north before sunup. He never came back. His little brother followed. He was too young to fight, but he could play a fife. At only 10 years of age, his story ended and was lost to the mist of time. During the war, the saltpeter mines boomed, saltpeter being a component of gunpowder. Coal was dug by hand and hauled by mule. Old men who had never worked underground before were suddenly miners, filling gunpowder kegs for battles they never saw. But when the war ended, the battlefields went quiet, and the mines went quiet, and the jobs disappeared. Whole towns withered. Some never came back. And into that silence came the coal companies, with bigger machines, deeper mine shafts, and fewer wages. But the people of Appalachia remembered. We remembered through our ballads, through stories told by the fire, through stitches and coils and thread and pine needles. Appalachian heritage white pine weaving isn't just art. It's the story of survival. Every knot, every spiral carries what the hills carry: loss, grit, grace, and perseverance. These patterns are maps of what we lived through. This weaving speaks of those ones that history forgot: the draft poor, the war widowed, and the miners left behind. Their stories live in the threads and in the whispering of the pines, as stubborn and strong as the roots of these great white pine trees. Thank you for watching, and if you have stories like these in your family, I'd love to hear them. Because as long as we keep telling the story, we keep remembering. And as long as I keep weaving, I'll keep trying to tell the story also. Because the story deserves to be told, and the people deserve to be remembered, because these are the people that made our country. These are our people. They are our families. They're your family. Thank you very much for listening. Hello, my name is Esther Loftus Medina. I'd like to take a moment to thank the Library of Congress and the National Archive for their use of the historical Civil War photography. And I'd also like to thank my daughters for their support and encouraging me to make this project. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day.